Thank you for inviting me to do this, Jenny. I think we worked together many moons ago, and I think you grasped then my passion for what I do. So we're having a little, Paddy's behind the camera, and he's just scrolling around some examples of my work. My gallery is a little bit scruffy because we're not long since back from a show. So how's that doing, Jenny? Can you see?
Yeah, lovely. You can go fractionally quicker.
So, yeah.
This is me on full speed, I'm afraid.
All right, so it's not rock and roll, Paddy.
No.
So I'll just talk you through a few of these finished pieces. These are wall plaques. Spin round here, Paddy. I've got a candle on this one. These are wall plaques because I love nice lighting. I make loads of candlesticks because I like my ceramics to have a use and be used. Gives a great ambiance in a room when the big lights are off. Go on, Paddy, you can go a bit quicker. I don't know, this way. And as you can see, it's all reasonably varied. I often have an idea, nothing complicated, and I have a go at it. And I'm sure we'll discuss. Oh, we've just passed In the Fields. That was one of my first ever pieces. It's relating to the High Peak Harriers, which are a hunting pack. They only trail hunt now, but historically they used to hunt hare, which is sad because I adore hares. But anyway, so there's a horse, a girl, and a hare. There are curlews galore because we have quite a lot nesting around here, which is amazing. Aren't they normally, they're wading birds, aren't they? So really, is it unique that they nest up here in the hills?
No, they nest on the uplands. They nest on the
flying one.
Yeah.
They nest in the uplands, Jenny. Sorry,
yeah, and they overwinter. They overwinter on the estuaries.
Right. That's what I call a world bowl that we've just passed. Again, it's functional. Keep anything you wish in it, on the top of it, but it all tells a story. Oh, the bull tureen, because I was invited to Pots for Food, which is the festival that Jeff and Pat run now, and it's all about food. So I didn't want to turn up with the usual casseroles and tureens that everybody else turns up with. So my take on it is these handles, the bull on the handle, etc.
These are lovely, Ros.
There's a running dog up there.
So your work is full of myth and legend.
Yes.
And also is referring to the things that are going on around you now.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Some reference to medieval and historical reference, like for example, let's just go back before. So these stags on the back of a horse, that's how there are a lot of reference to that in old masters' paintings. It's before quad bikes, etc.
It's from the hunt.
Well, no, not necessarily. Yes, yeah, but when they needed to bring stags down off the hill, and I call those pieces Off the Hill, they would always bring them down on the back of a horse. And a lot of the old paintings that I've seen in reference to that, they've always been grey horses. So I'm dying to get cracking with my demo. Have we had enough of that?
Yes, we can go into the demo now. So basically, we're looking at clay stories, storytelling in clay.
Yes. As the light fades.
Getting a great view of the garden.
Oh, I wanted you to put the outside lights on, Paddy. And then you would have seen that.
You can see it now. Look.
Oh, look, I'll put them on. It's a bit late now. There we go.
Fantastic.
Right. While Paddy gets his camera fixed up on the tripod, and thank you very much, Paddy, for assisting me with this.
Well, later we'll have Paddy in front of the camera and he can take a bow.
You'll be lucky.
Well, and he's also, oh, why am I sitting down? Right, this is my demo starting. Where do I start? No, not with that. Right, Jenny, so it kind of starts with a base. And what I'm going to do today is a fairly simple, because it's simple and complicated, but it's one we'll get through in the time allocated. So it all starts with that.
You're in Derbyshire, aren't you? Somebody's just asked a question.
Yeah.
Are you in Derbyshire?
Yeah, we're in Derbyshire. In the Peak District, where, as the crow flies, an hour on foot, door to door, from here to a pub in Castleton. Have you got me on? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, Jenny. So we're going to do a simple base to start with, and this is the base that I tend to use for the dogs. I've already got this reasonably leather hard. Otherwise, you're just working with this and it's going to squint and squash and it won't do what you want it to do.
So what clay are you using today?
Right, it's the Fuller mix mixed with the red terracotta, because this is my reclaimed clay that I've recently pug milled. I've had my pug mill for ages and I wasn't sure how to use it, and then one of my fabulous potting friends encouraged me and told me how to do it. So yeah, it's a basic red earthenware. The Fuller mix in a way is not incidental because that isn't available to people. Jeff liked it because it was quite heavily grogged, and he also likes the pale colour, which I'll show you because I've brought a figure of his in, but I'll make you wait till the end.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
So it fires up quite a pale colour, and I genuinely prefer the darker colour. But as a nod to Jeff and Pat, pot clays will only mix a ton at a time. So I always shared it with him. Right, so on with the base. So that's kind of leather hard. It's not rocket science. It doesn't matter if it's a bit over or a bit under, but too soft and it'll just won't really do what you want it to do. So let's just, I don't really need that. What is good is slap it down. And then that gives a nice, doesn't matter if it isn't exactly the same thickness all the way around. I've never actually, I know people roll clay out in between two sections of wood. I've never done that either, people, because I find that once you start handling it, it moves and changes shape anyway. So yes, sorry, Jenny, back to your question. This is a basic terracotta earthenware, and there will be slight grog in there because if it's a mix of Jeff and Pat's, there will be grog in it, but I often use one that hasn't any grog.
And the tool you're using at the moment, is that something you've made? No.
I think that was one of the first ribs I ever bought. And oops, just squash that. And it's great for just shaping a little bit of the base. Oh. Let's go back. better. And this just gives a little platform. It just makes it slightly more interesting. And you can, at this stage, do anything you wish. You can, you know, make it far more interesting than that. I'm going to zoom along because I've got pieces at various stages. So let's crack on. This is my throwing gloop, which is perfect for, right, this is when we get down and lucky. So I pop this on the base, it gives it a little bit of texture. Let me see, sorry. Gives it a little bit of texture, and it also, when I finally do the decorating with the oxides in slip, it gives it a bit more definition. So we pop that on, give it a good old swirl. You see, ordinarily I would be so nervous, but get me on ceramics and pots, and I'm as happy as a, what are we allowed to say now?
You're allowed to say anything.
Happy as a little sand boy. That's what we always said. Let's just clean that up. So, and then just to neaten it off, any brush will do. I just pull. Just gives a nice little neat, well, an interesting edge anyway. Right, and then clearly that is too wet to apply the back legs or any part of the dog that I'm going to make. So one more little thing I'm going to do at this stage, well, actually at the next stage, but never mind, let's do it now. Let's roll a little bit of clay, and this is going to demonstrate the use of my stamp. So we've got here, before I carry on with that, we've got here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about sprigs and stamps. That's about as technical as I get. Not technical, what's the word I'm thinking of? Sophisticated. Into the 21st century. Right. I'm over exaggerating this, obviously, because it's for demonstration purposes. That's rather larger than I would do. But anyway, so that I'm going to put to one side because I've got one that I made earlier, which will then come to when I want to actually sit the dog on the base. So let's bring that back. Right, so here's one I made earlier, but we'll come back to that. So sprigs, very, very quickly before I move on making the body of a long dog, a running dog. These personalize a piece of work. So that, for example, is, oh, and a sprig you have to do back to front. So there's an example. That was her name was Carol. It was to celebrate her, was it her 50th? If she was born in 60, whenever I made it anyway. So that's the sprig that I made, and then that is what I pull off it. And it just very subtly personalizes a piece of work, which is what I rather like. Shall I carry on with these a little bit? There's a seated hound. That actually Jeff gave me years ago. This was one of the...
These are made out of white earthenware and red earthenware.
Yes, either. yeah, whichever is at hand. So this is earthenware, not plaster. A chap that drinks in the local pub called Damien asked me to go wild with a beer tankard for him. So I put his name on, and a frothing pint of dark ale. Black lurcher is the favoured drink, which is unique to the Three Stags. And I don't know if any of you understand the significance of the tricycle. Damien, what film was it? Was it The Exorcist? The Omen. So I popped that on the back because I thought that was quite witty. Right, anyway, let's get on with the dog. Right, I have wedged this, but I'm going to re-wedge it just because it's a habit and I think it's good to do it.
So when you're making your sprigs, you initially make them in the soft clay, the earthenware that you use, and then I take it you biscuit fire them.
Yeah.
And then press them into your blocks, and then dry those and biscuit fire those, and then you've got the sprigs ready to roll, as it were.
No, the sprig is applied to the pot.
Oh no, I know. Sorry, I didn't mean actually roll. I mean, what I meant was when you've got the plaster, well, the mold made by firing it, biscuit firing, you're then able to use it. Yes.
And if I'm in a hurry, I can actually probably take one or two presses off it before it's bisque fired. But that's tricky, and that's my other stamp I rather like, and that's off that little sprig there.
Lovely.
It's often part of my decoration, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't write notes, so I might backtrack.
Do you have any particular sprigs apart from your signature sprig that you find that you use often?
Probably not. No.
Okay.
But I must do this. So all this is relative to a commission that I did for a family. This was their favourite oak tree in the ground, so I collected leaves. I followed the shape of the sprig. I did it in 2019, which then obviously dates the piece of work. We had 3 dogs. We had swallows, robins, an owl, all relative to the grounds of the family I was working for. Twin boys. These were legs that didn't make the grade, and I just thought, well, I'll keep those because they look interesting. So yeah, basically it just personalizes the work, and that's what I really like to do. Right, this is the only, so I've had 10 years of the Three Stags being our local pub, and not only have I learned a lot by observing Jeff working. There have been many visiting artists, potters, musicians, etc. But when he first took me under his wing, he gave me a 45-minute probably lesson in how to make a dog. So hence the reason I'm making dogs today. I love making them anyway. Every weekend we go to the pub. It will be full of generally running hounds. They seem to be the favourite dog around here. So Am I waffling on, Paddy? Are you keeping me on track? Right.
You're
So-
fine.
So this is it. So this was the education. He said, come on, one day, and he just rolled a bit of clay, gave me a little lump, and away we go. So we roll it into a cone shape. We get an old school pencil, nothing uber complicated, and then we open it up. And then I pop my finger in, and that's where it all starts. At this stage, if you've opened it up too much and you feel that your finger's nearly poking through there, then start again. Don't ever be afraid of starting again. Right, and at this stage, we now need, got some water in here. I use quite a lot of water. I'll do it over here, otherwise I'm going to wet my. What I find with earthenware is that you often, it's tricky to get movement with it. So I open it up. Shortly, I will close it, and then basically we've trapped air, and that will stop it misshaping. Yeah, well, misshaping too much.
Yeah, you've created a balloon.
So basically, we're now going to work on the nose, and it'll look anything. It'll look like a duck, a pigeon, like once you, but
Penguin.
if we just get a penguin, yes, not a giraffe, I suppose, but so that's kind of where we start. And then they have a deep rib cage, so I like to push the rib cage out. And bearing in mind, a lot of the work that I do, you know, earthenware, it's difficult to be not border fine arts. Oh, sorry, I've closed it up now. The lesson Jeff gave me, or more or less, stops here, because we got this far, and then he laid it on the surface and he squashed it down, like with a little bit of drama. And there's one I made around that time, and I'll show you why I got out of that squashing it down and then using this for the legs. But anyway, this is probably a little bit bigger than I like to make, but for demo purposes. And I'll try, I really don't want to bore anybody. And you know, it's like multitasking, talking while you make. I clearly don't ever talk to myself. And I share my studio with my little border terrier, and she's not interested in what I have to say anyway. So we're getting sort of a basic shape of a dog here.
I think it's quite interesting that you said that a lot of the dogs that they have at the pub are long dogs or running dogs, and we discussed the fact that you know, the long dogs were very prevalent in the 17th century ceramics. There were images of those on the earthenware, and I'm just thinking it may be the landscape around you that you know, has historically always had those dogs because it was suited them.
They were used in hunting, Jenny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, in medieval times, that was how people went out. I'm just adding a bit on the head here because I've left it a bit short. That is how people would go out and
Forage.
Forage and put food on the table.
Yeah, but still now they are that, I mean, people aren't doing that as much, although I know they're used for coursing and things, but but still now that landscape holds those dogs. And I often think how things are very, very more associated with the landscape they're in than you really think, you really realize. And
Yes.
you seem to be picking up on that imagery that's all around you.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. Do keep, if anyone attempts this, please keep washing your hands, because otherwise it all gets a bit messy. So I'm going to get to a point, and it really doesn't matter, because I mean, this isn't going to be a perfect specimen. Then we do the back legs. Now this, Jeff didn't show me this way. I've evolved to make them this way. So basically, and everything's by eye. I tend to make the bases first, and then it's kind of obvious how much clay to use to get something that's going to be in balance. So roll 2 balls of clay that are more or less the same size. They're a little bit small, but it doesn't matter. We're going to there's one I made earlier that we're going to put the legs on. That would be better. That would be better, because this is still all, you see,
Floppy.
when you work in earthenware, you have to be patient. You can hurry things along. I've got a little radiator there by popping it either on the shelf or the radiator, but let's put that to one side and bring the one out that I made earlier. Here we go. Here we go. So that's now not particularly leather hard, but look, it's much more manageable.
Firmer.
Oh no, I've already put the legs on that one. So no, I must put the legs on this one. Yeah, lie down, lie down. Right, okay. So they've got quite beefy, quite muscly back legs, haven't they? Yeah. Running dogs. So I basically roll that. And then to be honest, this clay is so wet, I don't really at this stage need to be adding extra water or extra slip. We don't have to be too precious. Let's add a bit more.
They look like pelvises to me.
They look like what?
Pelvises.
Pelvises.
Yeah.
Well, yes, they are. Right, so we're kind of getting the legs, because this is the seated version. I'm doing it 3 ways, remember? Did I mention that at the beginning? You didn't mention
it to start with, but you mentioned it last night.
Right, well, I'm going to, and basically once we've got to that with the dog, so if it's going to be lying down on the base, I would obviously put his head up, and if it's going to be the handle on a pot, then the legs come out differently than this, but the principle's the same. We've still got air in here, so I can still get it back to shape, because every time you touch or handle it, it wants to lose its shape. So there we are. We've kind of got to more or less
the next point of the
basic, the next point of the demo.
Lovely.
Anyone else that's happens to be watching Jenny work in earthenware or slipware?
I don't know. They'd have to say. I'm not sure. I mean, you and I both do, but it like you say, it's tricky stuff to.
It's the least forgiving, I think, isn't it, Jenny? If I was doing this for real, that head would have to come off. And don't ever be afraid of things like that, because if it isn't right, it isn't right. Okay?
And it's never going to get.
That is grown. And to be honest, the more you mess with things, when I've made small figures that go around the bottom of a wassail pot, the more you handle them, the more they grow, and it's really hard to keep them. Right, let me just rinse these again. I'm going to start on my nice clean bit of. Oh, and sponges. Oh, sponges. Potter's best friends. Not only for washing your hands, but clearing down and. Right, so we've got to that stage. We're not going to. Yeah, sorry.
It's so it's still supported by the air inside, but it's now firmer.
Yes, so I put it down and it's not going to mark, it's not going to distort. So the first thing we want to do is to start making it look like a dog. So we're going to put him some ears. And again, we want them fairly even, these ears. So again, always by eye, just get yourself a little bit of clay. Again, where's my trusted pencil? Here we are. Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah, no, I don't like that one. This one. Right, so we just wrap it around the end of the tip of the pencil. I try and leave these quite robust.
Yeah.
If they're too thin, then you know they're going to appear to be delicate in the finished state. But so with this earthenware, I would always, particularly with the figures, always bisque fire. I know some people single glaze, but I would always bisque first, because even at the bisque stage, it's obviously turned from clay to pot, but it's still
fragile.
And until it's encased in its glaze, which effectively is glass, isn't it, Jenny? It's
a form.
Glaze, a form of.
Yeah.
Right, let's get my little gloopy thing, just put a little dab of that. So we look at him, and if his head looks a little bit mean and lean, it thickens up a little bit when we put these on. And I pop them both on and leave them erect to begin with, so that I can kind of get them fairly even. And then I'm sure some dogs have ears like that.
Yes, but usually they've been cut.
Yes, but at this stage, this is where the character starts kind of forming, and you can have them with the inquisitive look, have them facing forwards, or you can flip them back, whichever you prefer. There's one that's made, well, there are two here. I haven't got many left. And as an example, this is the red clay, and his ears twist back a little bit, don't they?
Yeah, he looks like he's slightly embarrassed.
Yeah, is that and okay, what does this one look like? So this is the white earthenware, which obviously cuts out the slipping. That
was just looking at the bird that flew
off. Yes, right. So his little ears have gone on, and I must speed up because, as we say, I've got 3 of these to do. So we don't need to be too precious. But there we are, we've got the ears on. And then we come to the eyes. And they're often kind of further forward than you imagine. But remember, I see these little hounds often. And again, I'm going to say the word, it isn't border fine arts, but you know when it's right and you know when it's wrong. And I squash this in and I give it a little bit of definition, so a little bit of an eyebrow.
Yeah.
So you can see at this stage, I can handle it. It's not misshaping, unlike that dead one back there. I always keep a bowl of ready-made eyes. It's so frustrating when you can't put your hand on one. And I do that because if I were to roll a tiny bit of clay now and push that in, it would distort, wouldn't it? It wouldn't stay.
So those
nice
quite
and
dry.
round.
Those quite dry.
These are very dry. Yeah, I made a few the other day because I was getting low on, and it's funny. Even at this stage, I'll always pick 2 that I think are absolutely perfect for the little piece I'm working on, and then basically just pop that in.
It's like putting a glass eye in.
That's right. And then you see, we're already taking shape here.
Yeah.
I've already added a little nose on him, but basically I do that. I can do that at this stage, or I can do it at the, it would probably be best at this stage, to be honest, because they do have quite a prominent nose. And in fact, if you spend a lot of time with these long dogs, I'll whisper so they don't hear. They're not the prettiest of dogs in my mind. I like we have a border terrier. I like squat faces. People often say, what's with the long face? Don't they, with these running dogs?
Yeah.
See what I mean? It just sort of gives it. So I know it's basic. I know it's naive work, but there are certain bits and bobs that I like.
The thing is, regardless of how you perceive it to be naive, it is very well observed.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Now, these I haven't made earlier. So again, we're going to do 2 front legs. So we're going to need about that much, I imagine. Okay. Yeah, I think that will be fine. So again, they're going to be as even as possible, and then roll it out, and remember to leave again a little bit of thigh. So there's one. Is that director's bubbly, darling?
It is. I'm just going to some years ago.
Sorry, Jenny. The cameraman fancied a beer. So he offered me a glass of wine and I thought, no, save it till later. Right, I'm just going to wash these again, only because it's fairly delicate what I'm doing now, and best to have clean hands. Right, so we've kind of got those reasonably even. Okay, nothing has to be too precious. Whoops, whoopsie daisy. See what I mean? You get little bits of clay. In fact, let's just do this, because all these are little tips. Work on a neat and tidy surface. Right, so to get the feet, I just do a little squeeze. It doesn't have to be done like this. I haven't always done it like this, but it does give a nice little definition for the feet, because they have incredibly long toes, don't they?
Yeah.
These, are they called sight hounds or?
Flight.
No, flight. No, not sight hounds. Of course they're not.
Flight.
But they have so many names, don't they? And,
yeah, well, they call them
bless
long dogs down here.
Yes, yes, they do, because one of our the musicians that we really like, oh gosh, what's the band called, Paddy?
Are you thinking of Steve Knightley?
I'm thinking of Steve Knightley, that's right. Yeah, he sings about long dogs. Right, I'm just going to clean the knife. This is a knife that a friend made when I very first started working in ceramics. and I use it all the time. Oh, yes, but I need to hold that, Paddy. So I pop in his toes and then hope that hasn't stuck to the board. So if you kind of hold it like that, otherwise, look, it takes a bit of the
toe off.
Bit of the toe off, but it doesn't matter. Let's
carry on.
Let's carry on. Right, and then pop him. So there we go. We've got the start of 2 legs. Because once I've sat the dog on the back legs, I didn't do. I forgot to put the back legs on once, Jenny, on a candlestick that I did that had a horse, a girl and a dog. And we were sitting having dinner with the candlestick on the table, and Paddy went and pointed. And there's this dog sitting on a base and no legs. That was the first one I ever made, I think. But anyway, so at the stage, these need to be reasonably leather hard, because if they're as soft as when you first put them on, they're just going to squash.
Yeah.
And it's another little thing that I like to do, only for my own satisfaction, my own benefit. But if you know long dogs or whippets, basically, I don't know if the big lurchers do this, but certainly whippets, when they sit on their back legs, they hover. Because
they do. They don't actually put their
actually put their bottom onto the ground, which is, people that come in the stags are often horrified, because the dogs will be on the benches, which means there's nowhere for humans to sit, and they'll also be on the tables, and people think, that's filthy, but actually their bums don't touch. So this is the next step, isn't it? Because I do that and then I add the legs. No. They're roughly the right length, Jenny, at that. So yes, at this point I am going to sit him on. So
you've made those back legs the same as the front legs.
Yeah, I make the back legs the same as the front legs, but I put those
at what point would you have put that? So you've made your base, you've put the slip on it, you've tidied it up, you've added your stamp, and how long would you leave it before you do the back legs?
When you could actually put them on at leather hard like this.
Okay.
If you put them on when you put the gloop on there, then they would melt and disappear. So at that stage is probably the best. And then I kind of get this more or less into position, right, where he's going to sit. That will leave little marks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can then just score those ever so slightly. It just helps if we end up dipping this in the bucket of slip, white slip, then we need this to be as attached as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't tend to attach the front legs too vigorously, because there's so much shrinkage in earthenware that if you attach the front legs, so they're attached there and they're attached there, there's every chance they could crack as it dries. So that's really gripped nicely. That's just delicious. Right, let's just wipe away that excess. Gosh, it's so much easier working with a bit of music in the background.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know why I hate silences. I come down and, in the house in the morning, and I have to put the radio on straight away. Right, there we go. So he's fairly well balanced. He's sitting nicely on the base. And then obviously we don't want to jiggle him about too much. Let me just wash those again. You see this? They look so simple when when they're done, don't they, Jenny, these?
They do.
And they're really quite fiddly. Right, so we'll squeeze that. We'll leave him a bit of a thigh. We'll squeeze that ready to go on. And always do it that way, because if you get carried away and then you squeeze that way, you've gone the wrong way. Right, must I hurry up?
No.
I've got to do these 3 ways. Right, doesn't matter, you don't need to score, you don't, this is fine. And we can always pull those a bit longer as and when. Obviously we need to wet or slip just to get some. Do you want to turn him that way? And then let's just pull that one so he's the same length as that. And we want them to, oh! We've had an accident. Wonder why that happened. Never mind, let's, for the purposes of, I can't remember the last time that happened. Maybe I was a bit overzealous. Right, we've fixed him back on. We'll come back to that because I can deal with that with a little bit of water. And then this kind of gives a shoulder.
Yeah.
And we can. Any more questions, Jenny?
I haven't had any more questions come in. I mean, the great thing about doing it like that is that you build up the bulk of their shoulder, and they have a powerful shoulder. These
yes, they do.
They very
They
much
do.
So,
and you can bring that up.
Have you looked at a lot of 17th century ceramics? I know that you don't reference them in your work, but your imagery is similar. But I'm wondering now whether the imagery is similar because the landscape produces similar.
I do look at a lot of 17th century ceramics, as well as current things that influence me. But I suppose I'm not really that clever, Jenny. It's what I like.
Yeah.
It's what I see. It's what I observe. Right, we're just going to, a bit like you'd pull a handle on a pot. I'm just using a little bit of water here to repair this leg. In the end, when it's got its white slip on and what have you, you'd be surprised. It will all be disguised. There's just a little bit there. Let's just add a bit.
It's interesting by adding the legs, you've created a very powerful chest and shoulder silhouette.
Yes, which in its initial form didn't look.
No, it looked more like a seahorse.
It did. And then I very gently, because obviously the toes are delicate and they're going to want to break, I pop those so that they're resting on the base, and then leave a little bit of bend to allow for the shrinkage.
Yeah.
And don't worry, if you leave this in your studio overnight and you come in the morning, I'm going to put a tail on in a minute. And the worst, sorry, I must just clean this glue off my fingers again. The worst is actually the tails. They always seem to want to shrink away from the body. Yeah. And obviously that would leave a real weak spot on the piece when you come to fire it and handle it. And then look, you can squeeze those in a little bit, gives a bit more. So we're doing all right here, aren't we?
Yeah, you are. At what point do you puncture the
yeah, I would have done that before I put him on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you reminded me. So let's just move his legs out of the way. And I often put I've got this like little needly thing. I often put 8 teats or 6, but here we go. Look, we're just going into the cavity of the body now. Yeah. Let's do another couple up there. Yeah, we're right into the chest now there. 2, 4, 6, and then let's just put 8, not that we need to, but there we go.
Okay.
And then pop his
I'm
little
glad I
legs
asked the
back.
question. I was wondering.
I'm really glad you did. I knew I'd forget. I lay these tools out purposefully so that I would remember when I looked at that. Now, often I just stroke it a little bit with a brush because it neatens and tidies the whole thing up. And where your fingers can't quite get to it, your brush often can. So you don't need to wet those or anchor those. And then let's not forget his tail.
Yeah.
So dead simple, little bit of clay. The tails are, oh, you see, I know that will change when we fire him, but I don't like the look of that. So let's just tidy that up. Right, let's roll a tail. Oops, it's a bit wet because my hand was wet.
How many of these dogs do you generally make at a time?
At a time, the maximum I would make would be probably a dozen.
Okay.
That would be enormous. That's mass producing as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so
I would do 12 bases, get them to this stage with the legs on. Sorry, not concentrating. And then literally work the way that I've just showed you in stages, because it's much. Right, there we go.
And do you enjoy making that number one after the other, or would you rather make less and make different pieces?
I really enjoy it, Jenny, because once you get into the flow, then this is quite wet, this quite soft, this clay, but it's good. It's not coming up short. So basically,
Karen says, is the band Show of Hands?
Yes. Steve Knightley.
They're local from down here, I think.
They are from your neck of the woods, yes. Miranda Sykes, Phil Beer, who's probably my most favourite violin player in the world. He does Crow on a Cradle, Jenny, and it's fantastic. Right, so I look which side I'd like his tail to loop. It doesn't really matter. Let's go this way. So you can put his tail anyhow. You can.
Oh, and I think it's Karen again. She says their fans are called long dogs. So the fans of Show of Hands are called long dogs.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I just know that some people around here, if there are a few people that have long dogs, and they'll say, oh, there've been long dogs in those.
Right. Just going to add a little bit of extra to the top of that tail. And again, look, you see, it's going to be tricky with my fingers, even though I've got very fine fingers, but you can kind of press that on with a brush. And there you have it. Yeah, we have a dog made obviously in a few stages, but it's a very naive style of pottery, but it's anything but in its making, to be honest. And let me just clear out underneath the bottom here, because I do want to prove that I like to have them hovering, Jenny.
Yes.
I'll lift that up for the camera in a minute. And then when that's dry, again, to more or less this leather hard stage. Do you want me to lift him up? No?
That's fine.
I have one that I made earlier.
Yeah.
Turn it, yeah. Well, let's just clean that leg
Lovely.
up. Okay, yeah, let's move on. We don't want to bore anyone to tears. Right, so he is now at stage. You can see this is a little bit dry. It's already beginning to go pale.
Yeah.
So I will white slip that one.
Are you going to
Which
do that now?
basically, I can do that now, or I can move on to the handle on. Are you bored with
No,
dogs?
no.
I said 3 ways.
No, I was just
So
curious.
I must endeavour to kick on. Right. So
We're moving on to the handle on the jug.
yeah, and this is going to be tricky. So again, let's just get his ears on. Make him look a bit like the dog, and he's going. This is one I made earlier, and it's a sprig that it's a hair sprig that I took off a figure of a hare that I made. So that's kind of the halfway house. It isn't 3D.
Can I ask you with that sprig?
Yeah,
Have you added the ears to the sprig separately?
one. That
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Just that one
Yeah.
there.
Because there's the sprig.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to give this one a little bit of character because he's going to be.
Can I ask you? We have got time once we've done this to have the white slip applied. We're just doing the clay
Yeah.
work first. And yes. So to Fee, the slip will be applied. It's just that we're doing the clay work first, and then we're going to apply.
Yeah.
Ros is going to apply the
slips. When I say the easy bit, it's lovely. I do tend to brush it on because I've drowned too many dogs in my time.
I've had too many ears flop off.
Ears and etc. So yeah, I do like to brush it on, but it's very therapeutic painting this lovely luscious silky slip onto the earthenware body.
And your slip, slip is a ball clay.
Yeah,
that you use. And which ball clay is that?
It's the high class ball clay.
Yeah.
And I just mix that well and sieve it.
Yeah. I think high class comes from Watts Blake and Beirne in Newton Abbot.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Which
mine came from Stoke-on-Trent, from Valentine's.
Well, yeah, because they buy it from I think it's
they actually get it
it's
from
it's dug down there. I think that's where high class comes from. I know that I used to go and collect it from Watts Blake and Beirne. Mind you.
Now, my association with Jeff and Pat, so he showed me how to make a dog, but then, of course, our friendship has gone way beyond that, and they've always been there to help me or answer any questions. But if I've presented them with a question, they very often just sort of disappear and come back with a book or
get you to look it
some
up.
kind of reference. And yes, Pat's the technician. Oh, we need bigger ones. Got big eyes.
Rachel Slade asks, why do you cover it with slip?
Because it then gives me the canvas to apply colour. Otherwise, it would just be this brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, would just be plain terracotta.
Yeah.
And again, it's the tradition of slipware, slip trailing, so, potters would throw a bowl and then they would cover it in slip and then, beautifully trail it, sgraffito it, as you well know. Jenny, you do that, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I made these legs earlier because they need to be just right. So this might not work and it might, but anyway, let's have a go.
I love his feet.
So Yes, his little, and I mustn't forget to put him a tail on either. So we're going to pop these legs on. Sometimes I join these two front legs to give it a bit more integrity. But as I say, I would never, even after bisque, pick this pot up by the handle. But I've made quite a few of these, and one of our friends drinks out of one regularly in the pub. It's 1.5 pints, so there's some weight in it, Jenny. And
so when you say I would never pick
it's
it up by the
perfect.
handle, do you mean that when it's
Well,
fired?
When it's bisque fired, when it's
But I mean,
glazed,
when
absolutely yes. Sorry, don't pick it up by the handle until it's got its glaze on.
Yeah,
because
well, I mean,
you're asking for trouble.
Well, I don't pick things up by hand. In fact,
Anyway,
I did have a really shocking moment when someone said, "Can I carry your pots through?" And they were dry but not fired.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, thank you." And they picked them up by the handles and.
Oh no!
No, luckily I managed to calmly say, "Oh, could you put them back down?" Because I had visions of all the handles falling off.
Yes, a bit of, yeah. Right. So this one, I'm going to leave them separate. We're going to pierce the body. It's a great feeling as well, when you've actually gone through.
I know.
It's the only thing I use this for, when I'm throwing, I never use a pin to, oh, it's brilliant. I felt it's back then. And don't go right through, obviously. When I'm throwing, I never, you just do it by feel, don't you?
Yeah.
Really, the thickness of a bottom.
I actually like it when it hisses.
Yes.
Because sometimes they hiss when you do that.
It's a great
as the air comes out. Yeah, it is.
Right. So we're now going to just kind of see. Obviously, it's going to be. Incidentally, that's a mean little lip, isn't it? But I did spend some time in here the other day, and so it's going to be. Yeah, we're going to score this now. Quite near the bottom. That's my. Are we more or less opposite? A bit wide, isn't it, for his skinny little legs? And then let's add some glue. And this is a bit tricky because you've got to work on, you've got to be aware what's going on here
while you're working
at the same time, as whatever's going on at the bottom. It may be a little bit soft, actually, Jenny. In a way, the more leather, the better. But let's have a go.
Yeah, but you also need.
It doesn't really matter for today.
Just right for the actual addition.
Yes,
it's a
and of course,
mixture.
It's really tricky because, of course, I'm doing this now, but as soon as I then touch that, it's going to bite. So you've kind of got to be quite positive and just get on with it. So we're going to loop him over. We're going to push. Let's not worry about the feet so much at the moment. Let's get inside and really push. Anchor that back leg. Push him up a bit. If he's hanging over the bottom a little bit too much, don't worry, we can nip that off. And then the thing about these is how it sits in your hand. Oh, I've got cramp. Are we still opposite the? Yeah, more or less. Let's not be too precious. And then let's pop his little feet down. Oh, bless. Sometimes I wonder. God, he looks like what? Sometimes I wonder if actually the head should be lower down, but then it would be kind of looking up. I don't like to be twee at all, but you could turn the head facing the drinker, as if to say, what, one last one. Sometimes I attach the nose, but it isn't necessary. I prefer not to, actually. Let's have his head back a bit. I think that, yeah, that's quite well balanced.
There's a good grip for the hand there.
Yeah, there's a good grip there. And so now at this stage, I will probably just add a little bit. Well, let's tidy up that slip anyway. At this stage, use a little water. And then what I would generally do, Jenny, is I would actually white slip the pot, the tankard or the jug first.
Yeah.
Before I apply the dog, because if you dip this whole beast into your bucket,
you're asking
so I would slip the inside, shake that out, let that more or less dry, always slip the inside of the pot first and then slip the outside of the pot. So basically we'd be working on, we would then attach the little fella to the pot and then we can paint the slip onto him, which is far safer. So that's
so
better than I could have wished.
You're saying that you would have slipped the pot before you applied the handle?
Before I apply the handle, yes.
Yeah.
Seems crazy, I know, but it doesn't matter. And where you get a little bit of, in fact, I would attach it with, that's my white slip, but my white glue, similar to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And where's the tail going?
The tail's going to go on. I've heard it said about handles, and it's the space between the pot and the handle. I know it looks a bit crazy now, but when it's all settled down and it's all kind of dried into itself.
I can see you've got a reasonable grip there.
Yeah. I'm just going to go back in and give that an extra little push at the bottom. But that's perfectly adequate to hold this pot full of whatever it is you might want to put in there. Well, this is a jug, so gravy. Let's say gravy. What should we say?
Gravy. All right.
And that's a little bit right, and let's pop him a tail on, and then that's the second of the dog 3 ways. How are we doing for time?
You've done an hour and a quarter.
Have I really? Oh gosh, Jenny. Wow, wowzer. And his tail's going to start about there, isn't he? His back legs are beefy.
Yes.
But I'd say his tail's going to start there. Is everyone okay? Is everyone kind of following this?
Yeah, I do believe they are.
I so, I love throwing, and I throw to throw myself a basic form, to be honest, to then embellish, because just before we finish, I must show you the wassail pot that I made for Paddy for his 50th birthday. That was 10 years ago exactly. Oh, sorry. and it was the first pot that I made after so Jeff and Pat took me into their pottery, and I was so shy. I was really nervous. I'd made pots at school, and I'd started this absolute desire and passion because I was at that stage following Jeff's work. There we go. That's the tail.
Lovely.
So at least he doesn't look odd, does he? But you'd be surprised once this all shrinks. Somehow I look at them at this stage and I think, gosh, that looks, it just looks a bit odd. It doesn't look right. But once that's attached a bit more, I might be able to just pull it out a bit. But anyway, so there we go. And then the third one, we can run through this really quickly now. Jenny, I'm like teacher's pet because I've really done my homework. Let's move him. In fact, why don't I just move him on the back, which would be better than lifting him up, wouldn't it? put in. So it's profile view. That was the earlier one, and you can see that's too wet. Oh, sorry. That's too wet, Jenny, to have put the back legs on, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We'll put him with the dead one there. Right, so I made 2 bases here. Same principle. When it's lying down, I like to pop a little bit of interest on the base. Here we go. I did make these little legs earlier, so this will speed things up. Again, putting the ears on is just delightful. And if anyone does this at home, do we have a lot of professional potters in your group, Jenny, or?
We have a mix. We have
a mix.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I came into this at a later date. Life took me on various, you know, courses. I was at boarding school. My parents moved overseas in the 60s. And I went to a little boarding school in Africa when I was 6 for a couple of years. And then when I was 11, I was flown over. Well, we used to fly on our own as unaccompanied minors, but I then came to school here. And really that I guess I left home then. Those ears are enormous. Sorry, that's far too big. So effectively, I sort of left home at 11 and had the boarding school life. When I left school, I needed to find somewhere residential. And at that stage, I think the only thing I actually liked at school was art. But I needed somewhere residential. So I went to catering college. And I love that. And again, it's an art form, isn't it? It's creative, cooking, etc. I went down that path. I then retrained as a mature student and became a chiropodist for 15 years because I could. We don't need to go in the ins and outs of that. And then a riding accident, this hideous, like, broken knuckles and things, forced me to stop practicing as a chiropodist. And we'd taken on this small holding, so it was handy because I could be here to get on with what needed. We bought an old working farm and we've made it into this. Again, these ears, let's just do that because we've done ears before. Pop the little eyes in.
Karen asks, do you ever wrap your pots, like the handled jug, in plastic to even out the moisture and avoid drying cracks?
No, I don't actually, Karen. No, I'm very fortunate that actually, I think it's with this. Is it a bitumen floor? When all the heat's off in here, it's almost like a fridge. It's not unpleasant to work in, believe me, but no, I wouldn't wrap that. And to be honest, Karen, you have to be careful wrapping any kind of figurative work because it's easy to distort either the decoration on it or if I were to wrap that, it could potentially kind of squash the ears a bit, but no, I don't need to. Right, let's just pop the holes in. I thought it was quite funny doing a dog 3 ways. It was a bit like a cookery program. Right, so which base would this one look better on? What do you think? I think this one.
Put it on the other one.
Did you say the back one?
Yeah, I like the back one.
Yeah, the back one. What do I know? Let's leave that there.
Let's make it by committee, shall we?
Right, now this obviously was one I made earlier and it doesn't quite matter so much, obviously, because it's lying down, but let's just soften that. Dip him in there. I won't be too precious with this. Let's just be quite fast. What have we got to cover after this? Oh yeah, I'm white slipping, aren't I? That.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Yeah,
But you're whizzing along. You're whizzing
I'm
along.
whizzling along.
Whizzling along.
Well, it's different to throwing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely
We have a lot of people throwing, and you know, it's fantastic. We all have our own style. Let's face it, our fingers, our hands, everything is so different. Oh, Jenny, you started your throwing career with the master, didn't you, with Sven?
Well, that was my big pot throwing career. I was throwing when
Yeah.
I was at Shinner's Bridge Pottery,
Right.
and had thrown quite a lot. But it suddenly occurred to me,
Throwing big pots.
that I wanted to make really enormous pots for a very large canvas for all my drawings. And
Right.
I'd been taking Sven kayaking, and I decided that I asked him, I wanted to come and see him watch, you know, make these big pots, and he said, this is, you know, I could go along and
Go along. Fantastic.
and learn.
So it's amazing how things happen, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
These are quite dry, these legs. So look, he's sticking up in the air, and I want to gently coax them down. So again, it's a little bit of patience. Put that on, leave it. If you do it too soon, because they often cross their front legs, don't they? So I'm just doing that as a little bit of interest.
So leave it, and it will soften, and then
we'll leave that. That'll soften. Pop him like that. We tidy up those back legs. I've squashed that one underneath him, putting it on, but that doesn't matter. Let's get that out, and let's overhang that a little bit. That's nice. And I would tidy that up. In fact, I know I put holes in there, but in this fella, he can have it in his bum. That's what I would generally do with the lying down one.
Where's his tail going?
Here, on the back, and then he's going to have to loop round and over. It's surprising, isn't it? You think you've done quite a big base, but in fact, well, he's fine. I don't mind that he's hanging over that a little bit. And anyway, it's for demonstration purposes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just, so here's his tail. No, don't like that. I think everyone will need a lie down after this.
No, you will, but we
Being a
won't.
bit full on. No, this is how I work all the time. It's quite intense, but so his tail's going to be more or less the length of him, isn't he? So let's.
So after you've slipped your pots, I take it you bisque them then.
Yeah,
and you apply when do you apply your colour?
Oh, I apply the colour after the slip. So when the slip is dry, I then apply the colour, and all my colours are oxides. I don't use any commercial colours. I just keep this lovely basic colour pattern that is sensitive to, you know, not medieval pots. It would be wrong to say that, but
traditional colours.
Yes.
Earth colours.
Earth colours, yes.
So
Jenny, I can't get a red, and I really miss not having a red. But and then what I do is I just kind of smooth him out, just because I like to do it, and I can, and that any residual water will plop onto the base and help fix him. And of course, when you slip this, the slip acts almost as a glue as well. Right, let's see if we can. Yeah, there we go. So we can
the oxides that you use, manganese.
I use manganese for obviously the brown. It's great for the hairs. I use cobalt for the blue, and copper, which is kind of my favorite, really. I get a beautiful green. I don't fire awfully high, Jenny, for
Oh yeah.
A lot of a lot of earthenware potters now fire almost as high as stoneware, and I don't. I fire to.
What do you bisque to?
I bisque to 900.
900.
Yeah, and then I glaze to 1040. That's all, but generally with at least half an hour, sometimes an hour soak. Now, when I'm doing my runny treacly iron glaze, which is what I like to use on the big Griffin candlesticks,
Yeah.
I will go to probably 1060 with a soak, and that works for me. Right, there we go. Running dogs 3 ways. I can't believe I've got through that.
Okay.
And then let's just white slip.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's that little fella. So we've got 1, 2.
And when you mix your colours, how do you apply them? Do you mix them with what do you mix them with?
I just use the white slip, and then by eye, I just pop in its powder form, and I just mix it by eye. So I always keep some that's in a bucket or a container, so that when I mix a new batch, I can match it up to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Oh yes.
Right. We're just
what
going to
type of kiln do you use?
I use an electric kiln.
We had this discussion the other day. It's the same as mine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same as yours. Yes,
Oh,
it's a
right.
front loader.
It's a front loader Nabatherm.
Yeah, and it was the biggest that we could get on single phase.
Yeah, we had this discussion.
Yeah, we did. Just going to wash my hands now. Probably for the last time. One of the first things Jeff said to me was, "Those nails will have to go."
Oh,
I'm not even convinced I had nails at the time, but I doubt it. But it's amazing, Jenny, and anyone can do this. And you kind of have to keep the faith in what you do, because you can so easily look what other people are doing, and I think what
and lose your way.
Your boat. Yes, it's easy to lose your way, and I've just had this passion ever since I first set eyes on Jeff's figures, and you worded it beautifully at the introduction, that the sensitivity, naivety, although it's a real intelligent work.
Play, yeah.
And you can see why people dip, but when you dip, you often get an air bubble in the middle there anyway. So I'm doing this for speed. Don't really want any on there.
But dipping risks the ears. And
yeah, well, it does really, because it kind of sucks. It pulls, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not. It is worth trying. And if you're confident that you've anchored the body onto the legs. I need some new brushes. These are so wearing thin.
I made this big mallard on a fancy base, cut a hole in it, and then dipped it. The whole thing filled up with slip, and then I watched it slowly slump.
Yeah. And do you know what, Jenny? How long have you been potting? But we all sometimes in our haste do silly things like that.
And I just watched it from the other side of the workshop slowly deform and then collapse in a heap with a vague bird shape.
But it's an amazing thing to do, isn't it? And I love it when I've got a challenging piece of work on the go. If I happen to not be sleeping awfully well, I can think about the next stage, how I'm going to do it, and work things out basically it's worrying about something I can do something about, rather than if I haven't got anything on the go, I can easily worry about things that I can't do anything about. So, as I think we all go through that. And then I've got a lovely slim pointy
Actually,
little.
it's just really interesting watching the slip go on, because where the mouth is of your long dog, it's begin, even just the slip itself has changed the character.
Yeah. That was the one thing I forgot to show you. Do the mouth with a rib, because they have that little downward turn, don't they? So
Yeah.
basically, when it's again almost leather hard, pop that in at either side, and that just gives that lovely definition of the mouth. Right. So there we go. And you can always come back and re-slip it.
Yeah.
For example, something like this big rascal here, he's the red clay. Can you see bottom of his feet? He's the red clay and white slipped. And when I got to the stage of white slipping this, I slipped opposite legs to begin with. Otherwise, he'd have probably ended up in a heap on the floor, wouldn't he? Because it's like applying custard that soaks into the body far more than if you were to just wet it with water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we got many slipwear potters out there watching this? Have we got anyone watching it, Jenny?
Yeah, we
I never
have.
asked you. What if no one's turned up?
Oh, loads of people have turned up.
Oh, good. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for giving me this platform to show you what I do.
Oh, but I haven't told, well, I think I asked you, but I went and told Paul I had. We are recording this. It will go on our website.
Oh, marvellous. Oh, heck.
It might be marvellous.
Oh, heck. Oh, gosh. Do you know, before this started, I thought, oh, my goodness, I'm a potter, not a TV presenter.
Well, actually,
I wondered how I'd ever get
your
through
hands.
it.
It's your hands we're seeing a lot of, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, good. I've not had much of a wobble either, have I? Because sometimes I do get a bit of a shake, but I don't worry about that because it isn't nerves.
I can see you're gradually going over bits that I haven't quite caught the first time. So would you leave it for a few minutes or hours and then slip it again once?
Yeah, I would. And actually, I don't like it without slip on there. So we're going to. Right. So now we've done this. What are we wrapping up with, Paddy? We're going to show those wonderful pots. The wonderful. I've brought. I think the last piece of work that Jeff ever made, he didn't make, considering he had quite a long career, Jenny. There isn't that much of his work out there. He never, it's unfair to say, mass produced anything. He made quite a few garden rooms. He made quite a few. His statement thing was the man holding a bunch of carrots and the woman holding flowers. He made a few, but he never saturated the market with his work. And despite his reputation of, if you go in the pub and ask for lager, he'll tell you where to go. He's actually a very sensitive man, and he would have been, I think, had he not been a potter, he would have been an illustrator. I'd love to show you some of the drawings he'd done. Anyway,
Rachel asks, the glaze on your horse seems to go right down to the bottom. Do you have issues with sticking to the kiln shelf?
No, I wiped his feet, although it was tricky. Can you imagine? Look at that.
I know.
It's bonkers. So when I glazed him, somehow, I tell you what I will have done, and this is the kind of thing you have to work out. So when I glazed him, I'll have done that and wiped it off the bottom. This glaze doesn't run at all. When I'm trying to get the treacle runny effect, oh, believe you me, yes, it sticks terribly. It runs terribly.
I've got another.
Oh, there we go.
So, yeah.
Do you see
I've
what
got
I mean?
one of those.
Yeah, so I just use them in here. And a lot of the pieces that you might see in the background here they're broken bits, and I use them for information. Oh, Rosie's top tips.
Yeah.
We're on
do it,
Rosie's
so-
top
Yeah,
tips.
I would
now.
just want to say that this is from Anne Sykes. I'm a
Yeah.
stickware potter who just throws and uses stencils, etc. This is great, very inspiring.
Thank you so much. And if you
thought you'd
ever
like-
want to know anything more, I'm so enthusiastic about it. I email me, ring me.
Yeah.
Right, my top tips. This is another thing I learned from Jeff. Very smuttily. I have a little selection of tea pegs here, and these are perfect for, what do you think? If you knew Jeff, it wouldn't take you long to guess.
Carrots.
No. Nipples.
Nipple.
Boobs. So boobs.
Oh,
for the,
can I just
for the
ask?
girls.
Are
Right.
the different tea pegs or whatever they're called? Do they have different nipple effects?
Yes, they do indeed. Yes, because this little blue one here, that's not quite as prominent as that. And I mean, it's not ideal pushing into plastic, but if you're fairly quick, if your plastic's dry, push it in, give it a little twist. There's a different one, you see, and then just cut the back off.
Wow,
Right, they're boobs. That's tip one.
yeah. So how to make nipples?
How to make bosoms. Tip two is Paddy made me these blocks of wood, and these are what I use quite often as a base, and cover it in cling film, because if it isn't pot, I've never used plaster, by the way. I don't have any plaster molds. I have bisqued earthenware as molds, but look, this, that would be that. And
Okay.
obviously you would need to stand that on when you're doing it, the base, like that, and then roll your clay out over the top and cut it round. So that's tip two. Tip three, I think, have I written it
Sheep
down?
hair.
Oh, sheep hair. Right, so this again came from Jeff. Sieve,
Yeah.
a little sieve. Made this before I even started kind of doing anything. But yeah, sheep hair. It's actually a great feeling. It's like those, can you remember those toys when you were a kid? Were they toys? Was it potato heads or something? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, like that. And then and you need to do that obviously quite a lot of times, but that's your sheep fur, sheep hair, yeah?
Yeah.
On a figure.
Yeah.
So there are the boobs, there's the sheep hair, the bases, and then I think that might be it, Jenny. Oh, one last thing. When you're cleaning your wheel down and you put your bucket on there, do remember to switch it off at the mains, otherwise you'll take an early shower. Because look out, and honestly, I've been down here and I've accidentally pressed that and whoosh. Anyway, that's that. And then just to finish off, shall we look at these pots here?
Yeah, let's see Jeff Fuller's pot. And the other question I didn't ask you is, what is your desert island pot that you were going to tell me?
Oh, right, okay. I would be useless on a desert island. I would absolutely desperately need a dog with me.
Okay.
So I would, let me just throw my hands back. I would take the first ever dog that I made with Jeff, which was this.
Yeah.
Shall I put him on the side? So that was the education.
Yeah,
That was that one time, a thin little babe He's lovely, isn't he? Pat
He's
was so
lovely.
impressed.
He's lovely.
So impressed. But then I went home, Jenny, and like teacher's pet, I went home with some clay and I made 5 that was one of them. Look at that. I think I've come a long way. And why did I leave such a long nose? But you know, when you're a bit,
He's a stargazing long dog.
yeah, Pat adores that. She goes, he's like a crocodile. Right, this is
so
Jeff's
this is
pot.
Jeff's work.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
It's incredibly loose, but yeah, I mean, I just adore that. And he actually he sticks his legs on, because to fire something of that size on legs, so it sticks his on, but I always glaze mine. And then this is this is the iron glaze, so same recipe but just with some iron in it.
It gives the honey
again glaze. But that's a broken one of the wings came off, which is why I get to keep it, which is helpful, because when I come to make any more, which I would love to, I've probably only made 4, 6 of those over the years. That will give me information. And then this was Paddy's pot. Let me put it on the word.
Come back a bit, Paddy. Thank you.
I'm just going to pop it on a whirler.
Yeah.
Because then I can show you how it tells a story. Can you just shove the whirler on a bit, Paddy? Right, so Paddy is Leo, hence the lion. We've got a sprig with his name and his date of birth, 8861. They're my initials. I dated it 2011 because he was born in 61. I'm Pisces, hence the fish. He used to love his shooting, so we've got reference of the guns there. This is our address. We've lived here for a long time. His pet name is Princess.
Not my, just for clarity, my pet name is not Princess.
Princess, no.
Oh, I thought it was Paddy. It's Princess Paddy.
Princess and the P.
Oh, right.
So that, and obviously that's in two halves. That was the first thing I ever made. I saw Jeff's wedding pot, which didn't have a foot ring on it. And I said, oh, do you think I'd be able to make something like that for Paddy? He scratched his head and he said, yes, have a go. So I drove home. It's only 10 minutes away, thinking, how would I ever dare? But you can imagine how ugly those 2 vessels, those 2 shapes were until, oh, and I'd made a practice one. And I asked him how I could improve it. And he said, put a foot ring on it. So I know it's not perfect, but for the very first pot that I made, I think
it's full of joy. It's full of joy. It's a joyous pot. Next question. What glaze do you use, please? That's from Carolyn.
What glaze? I use a lead bisilicate. I've got the recipe if anybody wants to know. And there is, I should have had my book with me, shouldn't I?
Well, no, what I'll say is, if anyone wants the glaze, email me. I'll forward it to Ros. And,
okay.
And then you can reply.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. It's basically the recipe that Jeff uses. And I've stuck with that. I did way back, and actually it was probably around this time. It wasn't melting, it was staying quite buttery and opaque, and it was a bad batch of flint.
Right.
That's what we put it down to. So I used Josie Walter no flint glaze. Josie's very, very generous with her recipes and things. And I used that for a while and it worked, but I bought some a new batch of flint and away we go.
Yeah. So
it works well.
do you use the raw flint or do you use the dried flint?
It comes in a bag, Jenny. From Barclays.
Like a powder.
It's
All right,
like powder.
it's like a powder.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, it's a
yeah.
dried flint.
Yeah,
It's just
dried.
some of the flints you get are quite lumpy, and they've got more moisture in them.
Right, yeah, no, ready, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Not powdered, but however it comes in a bag.
Actually, what I need to do is I've got to thank Paddy for his marvelous film work that he's done. Can you come in front of the camera, Paddy, or not? Oh,
No, I just did.
You're
That's
just
good.
a mysterious person in the background.
That's
If
exactly
you
it.
come here, you might get a reflection in the window. Oh, no. Yes, go on. Here we are. Me and him. Can you see us?
I can't,
Just about.
I can't see you.
Oh, Jenny, well, thank you again so
No,
much
thank
for
you.
inviting me.
I'm